You're staring at your phone. You've rehearsed it 1,000 times. I'm done. You know exactly how much they've taken. You've mentally packed your bags. Then it buzzes. It's them. Not an apology. Just a tiny, calculated breadcrumb. A casual hey. And just like that, you drop your bags. The anger evaporates, replaced by a sick, hollow relief. You type back. You convince yourself that maybe this time is different. Pause for a second. They didn't change. They felt the leash get tight, so they gave it a tug. And you stepped right back into line. This is the uncomfortable reality of how to walk away from anyone. You can't. You're still waiting for them to give you permission to leave. You are sitting in a cage with the door wide open, terrified to step outside. The power of detachment doesn't start with moving your feet. It starts with admitting you're wearing a collar you fastened yourself. You reach your breaking point. You stand up, voice shaking, and say, "I'm done." You expect them to panic, to finally see your value. But they don't. They just stare at you, unbothered. And what do? You don't walk out the door. You sit back down to explain exactly why you're leaving. Stop. Explaining is negotiating. You aren't leaving. You're just hoping they'll beg you to stay. You block their number. 2 days later, the withdrawal hits. You unblock them just to see if they reached out. They didn't. You're the one who draws a line in the sand. You're the one who hands them the broom. You're the one who apologizes for getting mad. Every empty threat proves your boundaries are a joke. To master how to walk away from anyone, you must stop using your absence as a test. The power of detachment begins when you realize the negotiation is already over. You rearrange your entire schedule for them. You cancel plans. You ignore your exhaustion. You bend over backwards just to be available the second they reach out. You give them premium access to your life. And when you need them, they give you a vague excuse. They leave you on read. They offer the absolute bare minimum. And you take it. You justify it. You tell yourself they're just stressed. Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody is going to tell you. Your presence has absolutely zero value to them. None. Why? Because your absence is never a real threat. It's basic economics. Infinite supply creates zero demand. You have made yourself infinitely available, so your worth has plummeted to zero. If you want to learn how to walk away from anyone, you must embrace the power of detachment. Detachment is recognizing that your presence is a privilege, not a clearance item you hand out to someone bankrupting your soul. You lie awake staring at the ceiling. You agonize over what they are doing. You grip your phone, fighting the urge to check their status. You are holding on to them so tightly your own hands are bleeding. You think this suffering proves your love. You think this anxiety means you are loyal. Wrong. It means you're a hostage. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a man who is alive." Let's translate that. He who fears losing someone will never do anything worthy of keeping his own soul. You are so terrified of losing them that you have already abandoned yourself entirely. To master how to walk away from anyone, you must use the Stoic knife. Cut the cord. The power of detachment isn't about lacking emotion. It's realizing your fear of their absence is the exact weapon keeping you trapped. You haven't heard from them in days. You're finally starting to heal. Then your phone lights up. A 3-word text, "Thinking of you." And what do? You don't delete it. You reply within seconds. You take the hit of dopamine. For 5 minutes, the agony stops and you feel like you matter. Let that sink in. You are trading your sanity for loose change. Here's what you don't want to hear. You aren't staying because you're loyal. You're staying because you're addicted. You are terrified of the empty space they will leave behind. The familiar, Predictable disrespect feels safer to you than the terrifying void of being completely alone. You are using their breadcrumbs to medicate your own insecurity. To understand how to walk away from anyone, you have to admit your addiction. The power of detachment is surviving the withdrawal without crawling back for a fix. You look at the years you've wasted, the arguments, the tears, the pieces of yourself you surrendered to make this work. Then they do it again. The exact same disrespect. Instead of leaving, you double down. You think, I can't throw away all this time. You tell yourself that if you just endure a little more pain, they will finally wake up. You actually believe your suffering will purchase their loyalty. Stop. You are trapped in the sunk cost delusion. Here is what you don't want to hear. Your pain is not a currency. You cannot buy respect by letting someone destroy you. Every time you tolerate the intolerable, you lower your own price tag. This is exactly why knowing how to walk away from anyone matters. You think you're protecting an investment, but you are funding your emotional bankruptcy. The power of detachment means accepting the time is gone and refusing to give them your future. They give you one perfect afternoon. No coldness. They look at you with the eyes that made you trust them in the first place. They promise they'll change. And what do? You erase months of torture. You wipe the slate entirely clean. You grab onto that tiny fragment of decency and build a fantasy future around it. You tell yourself, see, I knew they had it in them. Pause for a second. That wasn't a breakthrough. That was a reset button. They gave you just enough oxygen to keep you from drowning, so they can pull you under again tomorrow. Nobody is going to tell you this, but your optimism is your absolute worst enemy. You are weaponizing your own hope against yourself. If you want to learn how to walk away from anyone, you must assassinate your hope. The power of detachment means stopping your addiction to potential and accepting the brutal reality of their patterns. You pack your things. You scream at them. You slam the door so hard the pictures rattle. You want them to feel the sting of your exit. You block them on every platform. You spend hours rehearsing the argument in the shower, finally winning every time. You think you finally won. You think this fire in your chest is freedom, but it's not. It's an invisible chain. Stop right there. Anger isn't detachment. Anger is obsession disguised as a boundary. As long as you are furiously drafting paragraphs you'll never send, they still own your emotional real estate. They are still the center of your universe. To truly grasp how to walk away from anyone, you have to realize the opposite of love isn't hate. It is nothing. The power of detachment is looking at the person who broke you, feeling absolutely zero pulse, and leaving in total, suffocating silence. You sit with your friends, crying over cold coffee. You list every horrible thing they've done. You play the ultimate victim. You ask, why do they treat me like this? Then your screen lights up with their name. And what do? You stop crying. You excuse yourself. You walk right back into the burning building. Pause. You are not a hostage. You are a volunteer. Here is what you don't want to hear. You keep choosing this because you are terrified of who you are without the drama. You use their toxicity to avoid facing your own emptiness. If you don't break this, picture yourself in 10 years. Still staring at a screen. Still begging for scraps. Still hollow. Mastering how to walk away from anyone starts in the mirror. The power of detachment is admitting the cage door is wide open, and you are the one refusing to use your own legs. You are staring at a crossroads. Standing still is no longer an option. You can choose the familiar. Rot. You can reply to their next breadcrumb. You can spend the next 5 years staring at a screen, waiting for validation from someone who doesn't respect you. You can choose to be a ghost, managing their moods while burying your own. Or you can drop the rope. No grand speeches. No final paragraphs explaining how they hurt you. Just absolute, deafening silence. You block the number. You don't announce your departure. You simply cease to exist in their reality. This is the brutal truth of how to walk away from anyone. The power of detachment isn't a magical feeling of peace. It is a deliberate choice to amputate a rotting limb to save your own life. You are staring at the open door. Are you going to keep begging for a seat at a table where you are the meal? Or are you going to turn your back and walk out? Choose.